Yes guys, welcome back to FunBuy's YouTube channel. I'm Finn and today I'm going to be showing you the build and assembly process for our M2R 90R. This build process will be the exact same for the 1010 90R and also our 50R. So let's get this thing out of the box so it can go from looking like this to this. Let's get this thing uncrated. So now we've got the box off. To get the cage off, all you'll need is a 14mm spanner and a pair of wire cutters just to get your front wheel off. So let's get the cage off. So now you've got the cage off, you can now remove your rear wheel, put that to the side. Final thing you want to do is grab a pair of wire cutters. You want to snip this bit of metal here. So then you want to come to the front, you'll need a 17 and a 19mm spanner. And what you want to do, you want to take your front axle out, take the nut off first, carefully pull this through, and make sure you grab your spacers, hard to put them back on so I don't lose them, and obviously the nut as well. I'll put that onto the side with all the other parts. And once we've now got the front axle out, we can now get this thing on a stand. So now I've got a bike on the stand. What I like to do first is to cut all the zip ties just to make it all nice and free. So again, we need your wire cutters. So you want to go around, cut all of the wire zip ties. So now you've got all the zip ties off, you've got all your parts. I'm now going to talk you through all the parts you get with the bike. So guys, the parts you'll receive with your bike will receive your front mudguard, your front axle with 2 spacers, your front wheel, and finally a bag full of parts which I'll now run through in detail. So in your bag of parts you'll receive your front number board, fuel cap and breather pad, your bar pad cover, your gear shifter, your manual, which I highly recommend you do read through as it does show you how to maintain this bike, 2 handlebar top clamps, and finally you'll receive 4 handlebar bolts. So let's get on to the assembly. So guys, the tools you're going to need for this assembly are going to be crosshead screwdriver, a knife, pair of wire cutters, 12mm socket, 8mm socket, a 19mm spanner, 17mm spanner, a 14mm spanner, a 13mm spanner, a 10mm spanner, an 8mm spanner, a ratchet, a longer extension bar, a shorter extension bar, and finally a 6mm Allen key. You'll also need a funnel. Doesn't need to be this big, but a funnel. You'll need some E5 fuel. So guys, to start off with the assembly, the first thing we're going to be doing is our handlebars. So you want to grab your handlebars, untwist them like so, and any wires are caught. You just want to place them behind the handlebars for now. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to remove all this bubble wrap. You can rip it sometimes, but if not you can just use a pair of scissors or whatnot. Same on this side, like so. So now what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to grab one of your top clamps, 2 of your bolts, and you're also going to want to grab a 6mm Allen key. So what you want to do, put them onto the bottom clamps, line up these ridges, slide your top clamp on top, and then you want to get these bolts in finger tight. We'll do the same with the other side. Top clamp on again. And also to mention, when we're tying in the handlebars, as you can see they're not tight yet. Well, what you want to do is you want to make sure these are nice and in line with your forks. That is the ideal angle. So once you're happy with the ridges and the height, you can now start tying in your handlebars. So what I like to do is I like to go around, get all 4 of them relatively tight, and then once they're all relatively tight, I'll go around again and make sure they're super tight. So now all 4 of these are relatively tight. Like I said, I'm going to go around, make sure they're very, very tight. So now, once all 4 of these are nice and tight, your handlebars are now installed, and you can give it a lip test. See it doesn't move, so we know that it's nice and sturdy. So guys, moving on with your assembly process, we're now going to be installing your rear shock. As you can see, it does come half installed at the top. You just need to do the bottom. So So for this, you will need a 13mm spanner and a 14mm spanner. This is a nice and simple step. All you got to do, take this bolt out from the bottom of the shock, like so. And then all you got to do is line up the shock. Over there, as you can see, and the bolt should slide through nice and easily. So now you can put the nut back on this side. Now you're going to grab your spanners. So the 14 will be on this side and the 13 will be on the opposite side. So now make sure you tighten this as much as you can. So once that's tight, your rear shock is nice and sturdy. So guys, move to the front of the bike. Before we do attach anything like mudguard, numberboard, etc., we do have these two wires that don't come plugged in. This one here is for your starter motor, and this one is for your kill switch. So both these wires are both going to go through this gap here. And as you can see here, there are two plugs. And as you can see, this is a red and green one compared to this, which is a green and black, for example. So green and black go through, which will go to the green and black one, which is this one on the right. And I'll go through this zip tie as well, just to keep the wiring all tidy. And then you can plug that in. And you can do the same for this one. Obviously it's going to be the only other plug due to there only being C. Like that. So now we've got them two plugged in, we can now move on to the front mudguard. So, as I just said, we're now going to be doing your front mudguard. And for this, you're going to want to grab your front mudguard. You will also need a ratchet with an extension with an A-mill on it. So, we can move down to the front here. I'm going to take these few screws out. So, now we've got all three bolts out. As you can see, you've got one longer one here. This will be for the front bolt. So, as you can see on the mudguard here, we've got the three back holes, the smaller one of each side, which will correlate to this hole, and these two at the back. So you want to put the longer bolt through here first, and then if you move your head to the side, you can easily line up the bolt to the hole. I'm going to get it in a few threads, don't hold too tight, and it makes it a bit harder to get these in. So it'll be the same for these, so it's a bit harder to see, but if you move your head again, you can get them in. Same for the final bolt, like so. So now, again, you can grab your ratchet, and you just want to make sure these are nice and tight. Like that, your front mudguard is all installed. So we can now move on to the front numberboard. So now we can move on to your front numberboard, and for this, we'll need your numberboard. And again, you'll need your ratchet, but with a longer extension. Maybe not this long, but if you do have one bigger than the previous one, shorter than this, it's perfect. And again, your 8mm socket. So, first thing we're going to want to do is come to the front and take these off. So now I've got these off. What I'll do is I'll grab my other board and one of these clips. What I'm going to show you now makes it a lot easier in my opinion, because these can be quite fiddly to install. So you want to grab your wire cutters, and what you'll do will slide the clip on, get your wire cutters, and I'll put it in the middle, line it up with the hole like that, and I'll clamp down, and then I'll also clamp down the edges. And what this does is that stops the clip from moving, so when we're installing it, it won't slide about, making it a lot harder. So you want to do that the exact same with the other clip. So clamp down the middle, to the left and the right, like that. Now we can grab our bolts as well, and here you want to make sure the wires are on the inside except your brake line, which will go on the outside. And also you'll see these two holes which will sit on top of it. So you want to slide that on like so, and then you want to push down on the number board, aligning these two holes with the brackets we just fitted. So once you've got these aligned, you can bolt in, get them in a few threads, and it should hold the number board in place like so. So now you grab your ratchet, and what you can do is do it right. So just want to tighten these up. There's one, there's the other tight. As you can see, that number board isn't going anywhere, so you know it's nice and secure. So guys, now we can move on to your front wheel installation, and we're also going to be sorting out this brake line. So the tools you're going to need for this are going to be a 19mm spanner, a 17mm spanner, 8mm spanner, and a crosshead screwdriver. You'll also need your front wheel and your front axle with the 2 spacers. So first step we're going to do, if I show you the brake caliper here, you can see this plastic spacer. So you're going to want to push this out. You can put that in the bin, you don't need that. So now you can grab your front wheel and your spacer, your front axle, take off the nut, the spacers, and as you can see here, these spacers are completely different sizes, which is what we need. So we're going to grab the smaller one. Axle can go through, spacer just on the end, but you don't want to push it any further. So now what you want to do, this bit can be fiddly, you want to align the brake disc into the gap between the pads. Right, so like I said, this bit can be very fiddly. Take your time with it and eventually it will slide straight in. So once you've got it into the brake pads, in between, sorry, you'll see it, and then we can line up our axle, slide it through, give it a wiggle, it should come out the other side. So you can see it come out the other end, take it back a little bit, and this bit can be fiddly again. You can try and squeeze it on, but the easiest way is to take the axle back out so it's not poking through, slide this on, push the axle through, which means then you can line up the axle and the other fork. Again, you can probably guess it, push it through. And then we can put the nut on, now we can tighten it. So your 19 will be the nut here, your 17 will be the axle side. So let's get this tight. So now that's tight, as I previously mentioned, we can now sort this out. So you want to grab your crosshead and your 8mm. You want to put your 8mm on the end of this nut here. On the other side, there'll be a crosshead. So you just want to loosen this off. So you pretty much almost take this nut off, but you don't take it all the way off. So now you can grab a little bit of rubber and this should slide straight in like so. So now you want to tighten this up, make sure this is in this gap and this is straight on. So now we've tightened this up, and as you can see, it's all looking a lot neater already. We can now move up to this little section. All you want to do, take out this little crosshead screw like so, and then pretty much the same as down here. You just want to pop that behind there, screw back in and tighten it off again. And now that's all tight, you can clearly see here your brake line is now nice and tidy. So guys, moving on with our assembly, we're now going to be fitting your gear shifter. It's nice and simple, you just need your gear shifter and a 10mm span. So you're going to want to take this little bolt out, and now I put this on here. And again, this is all about personal preference. You can have it higher or lower depending where you want it. I'm going to put it there for now. So now bolt back in, so I'll screw it in. Now you can grab your 10mm spanner, and what I like to do, I like to keep my finger on the end here just so it doesn't push in when I'm tightening. It has a smoother looking finish. So now tighten this, and as you can see, the gear shifter is not moving, so we know that is now fully installed. So now we're coming to the end of our build. We can now add the finishing touches, which will be your fuel cap and your bar pad cover. So just nice and simple. I like to flip it upside down, wrap it around, and then stick it back on itself just like that. So that's that all sorted. Now, I mean, this is quite self-explanatory. Just screw that on. So now, while we're here, I can show you how to do your lever angle as well. So for this, you'll need a ratchet and an 8mm spanner, socket, not a spanner. You can use a ratchet, can use a spanner, but it tends to round the bolts. So I prefer to use a ratchet. So you just want to loosen one of these bolts off, like that. And as you can see, it's now loose. So do both, makes it a bit easier. So then, what we like to do here at Funbike, our preferred lever angle, is if you put your arm straight down like this, you can see it's straight like that. Obviously again, personal preference, but this is how we like to do it. So once you're happy, you then just want to tighten these bolts back up, making sure you're holding it down so it doesn't come back up. Once you've tightened them up, you can give these a pump, as your front brake isn't actually touching the pads yet. And now your front brake lever is at the correct angle. So now we can start finishing up the build. So guys, now we can install your battery. So for this, you're going to want to come into the rear seat here and unscrew this bolt, or not even, sorry, and a washer. You want to put them to the side for now. And now remove your seat, which will reveal the beautiful battery. So for this, you'll need a crosshead screwdriver. Nice and simple. if you want to take off the tape with your bolts and blocks in, I'm going to grab the 2 terminal blocks. So now I've got these, I'm going to slide these into the terminals like so. You also want to make sure the bike is off. The key is down here, I'll show you later on when I start the bike. So now you can grab your 2 screws. Now I'm going to grab your negative, and your negative will be on this side, your positive will be on this side. So I'm going to put one of the screws through the hole, screwdriver on, and then it'll sit perfectly into the terminal, which you can then screw in. So once that's tight, you can then push the rubber cover back on, like that. So now we can do the exact same step, but with your positive. And if you do have a situation where, as you can see in there, where the butt falls through, find a zip tie or anything small, what I like to do. So I'll put this through there, get ready to put it in. I'll use the zip tie to push it into place. Obviously you don't want to use anything metal, can spark the battery. And then once it's in the block, you can now tighten it like you did with the other terminal. And again, push your little rubber cover back over the terminal, like so. So once you got them back on, what I'm going to do, make sure that the battery does work. As you can hear it does. We'll turn that back off. So now you can grab your seat, and you want to make sure these wires aren't in the way. So just want to push them into the middle, there's space, like so. So now you want to align this gap here under this screw, like that, push it through, and then your rear, there we go. So now you can grab your nut and washer, go back under, screw that on, like so. So now you can grab a ratchet and a 12mm and just do this up. It doesn't need to be too tight, just so it holds the seat nice and comfortably. And with that, your back seat and seat have all been installed. So guys, before you take this beautiful looking bike on a ride, there's one more thing you do need to do, and that'll be a full nut and bolt check. I'll run through what bolts you will need to check, but the majority you'll have to check every single bolt on the bike. But as I said, I'm now going to show you which bolts you'll definitely need to check. So starting off with the rear, you want to check your sprocket bolts here. You want to check your rear axle. You want to check your kickstand. You want to check your swing arm. You've got a few bolts on the engine casing. You can check this again if you want. You want to check your plastic bolts. You've got a few scattered around. You want to check your fork bolts. You want to check your brake bolts, and again your front axle. And you also want to check your front brake disc bolts as well. Onto the other side. So moving on to the other side, we'll start at the back again. Obviously you want to check your rear brake disc bolts, your rear brake caliper. You want to check your kickstart. Again, there's a few more engine casing bolts. You can check your heat guard on the exhaust. Got a bolt down here you want to check. Again, you've got your plastic bolts, you want to make sure they're nice and tight. You want to check your exhaust bolts down here. Again, you want to check your fork bolts. So guys, now you've done your full nut and bolt check, I'm now going to show you how to start the vehicle and run it. So guys, so now you've fully completed your assembly, I'm now going to show you how to start and run your bike. So starting off, you take your fuel cap off, grab a foot on, and obviously some petrol, E5s preferably. So now I'm going to carefully get some fuel in there. Now you can carefully remove your funnel because you don't want to get fuel on the plastic or the stickers. Now you can put your fuel cap back on. So now I'm going to show you how to start the bike. So if you look down here, this is your key. You just want to turn that right, and then next to the key you'll have your fuel tap. You want to make sure this isn't in the off position and turn it to the on position. And as you can see, the fuel is already going through to the filter, which means it's getting to the car. Finally, you want to pull up your choke, which is this. So you want to pull it up for start, and when it gets warm you want to push it down. So now that's down, press your electric start, give it a bit of throttle. Put your choke down. Just turn it off. It's as simple. And that's it guys, that's how you start your 90R. So guys, and with that, you'll finally finish your assembly for our M2R 90R. As I previously said, it'll be the exact same assembly process for our 50R and also the 1010 90s. So if you've had any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll answer them as quick as I can. And if you do have your child on this bike or yourself, please ensure they are wearing their protective equipment. If you don't have any, find it in the link in our description or in our bio, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hit it.
Why do I do this? Please, send help. I'm not meant to be okay. My milk tooth brings to the voice beyond like it's better than yours, it's better.
Right, we're live. Hit it.